Okay, everybody. Welcome back to the Hoplite channel. I'm your host once again. If you're new to the channel, thanks for clicking on this video. As you can see, this is Seneca Part 3. If you haven't seen the first two parts, I'd recommend going back to Part 1 and starting there. If you want to see the whole series in its entirety. And if you're even more interested, go back to the primer series that I did and begin with the first part of that series before going to Seneca, if you want to get the whole picture. But nevertheless, appreciate everybody coming back and tuning in for Seneca Part 3. We concluded Seneca Part 2 with on anger, and I decided to do 2 videos on anger. Just because I felt like it, it deserved it, which it did. But we now move on to on Clemency, which is a work that Seneca authored during his time in the employ of Emperor Nero. He was Nero's tutor at this time, and had seen the young emperor going through what he believed was a series of misjudgments, miscalculations, and it was prompting him to take rash action. And it was turning him into a very wicked man. Now, as history shows us, this may have been beyond Seneca's control as a Stoic, a philosopher, or even a doctor. If Nero was crazy or if he was just evil, anyone's guess. But the things he did obviously, live on well into modern era, and it's a shame that Seneca wasn't able to persuade Nero into seeing things the Stoic way. But he tried his best, and on Clemency was one of his attempts at that. So we're going to read a few passages from On Clemency. It's much shorter than On Anger, but it's still a very good collection of writings that every Stoic should read. So let's get a little history, though. He wrote On Clemency between 55 and 56 AD. Now, this was, as we said before, he died in early 64, 65 AD, so he only had about 10 years left, little did he know. But he was still doing his best to try to persuade Nero, to be a benevolent ruler. Don't be a tyrant. Tyrants usually meet very ugly ends, and even if they don't, they're vilified for history, and you don't want either of that. But what was going on was in the imperial palace in Rome at this time, as I said, there was a lot of degeneracy and a lot of scandal. It was a very ugly time in Roman politics, and we see what was going on. So Emperor Claudius, who was Nero's adopted father, was also the uncle of Nero's mother. He died in 54 AD, which is right before Clemency was written. It's suspected that he was poisoned by his niece. His niece Agrippina, Nero's mother, killed Claudius because, Claudius had served his purpose. He was kind of like the stepdad. He took Nero in, even though Nero wasn't Claudius's, flesh and blood issue. They were still related, but Agrippina marries Claudius. Claudius agrees to take Nero as his adopted heir. Agrippina perhaps thought, this guy's been around too long. Why don't we poison him, get him out of the picture, and then my son can be emperor, and I can possibly share power with him. Nero, as he took over in Rome and became the emperor, possibly didn't really fully trust his mother after perhaps learning that she, killed Claudius by poisoning. So Nero, perhaps because he didn't want to share power with her, or suspected that she might do to him what was done to Claudius, Nero had his mother executed in 59 AD. So he ordered the death of his own mom. Pretty crazy. Seneca, this was after Clemency had been written, so obviously Clemency didn't quite sink in enough to save Agrippina. It's doubtful Seneca liked, he definitely didn't like Claudius. He actually, I think he wrote a play lampooning Claudius for Nero. And chances are he didn't care for Agrippina much either, but he still wrote on Clemency hoping to influence Nero, but executing mom in 59 AD, yeah, there's no coming back from that one. No way. But this kind of began the downward spiral of Nero. I mean, he literally became one of the most brutal tyrants in Roman history. You had a series of murders, exiles, imprisonments, and then you had the Great Fire of Rome. Okay, so the Great Fire of Rome happened in 64 AD, about a year prior to Seneca's death. And no one knows quite where it started specifically. They have ideas, but it lasted 6 days. And after it had been put out, 2/3 of Rome was destroyed. So you can imagine like a city like Manhattan being engulfed in flames for 6 days, and 2/3 is destroyed after that's all over, less than a week. And it goes back, this fire, kind of shows the mindset of Nero. The urban legend was that while Rome burned, Nero fiddled. And the legend came from either people around the imperial palace during the fire passing rumors or perhaps direct accounts that they could hear the sounds of a violin or fiddle being played in Nero's palace, in his personal quarters. So either because he was insane and didn't care because of his insanity, he played the fiddle to drown out what he was hearing as people suffering in Rome, or he was truly evil and he played his fiddle to give himself music to accompany the spectacle of his own city burning. So this is the state of Nero's mind. But in any event, I mentioned earlier, and I corrected my video, that after they had eventually had enough of Nero, they tried him in absentia, and they found him guilty. And he had fled before the Senate and the people had decided to bring out the pitchforks for him. But when he found out that he was tried in absentia and they were most likely going to execute him, he himself committed suicide in 68 AD. So anyway, clemency. What is clemency versus mercy? Because the two terms sound similar. Is there a difference? And there is. One distinct difference that needs to be mentioned is clemency is concerned with justice. Mercy is concerned with absolution, right? So you say something like, show mercy. The wrong has been done. The wrongdoer has not atoned, but he seeks mercy for what he's done. So mercy is absolution. Is that I don't care what happened and to whom it happened. I am going to show mercy. I am going to just pretend as though this all never happened, and we can just go about our daily lives and carry on as though we were never here. That could be considered mercy. It's literally something that just is given away without any justice in mind. Clemency is different. Clemency is the goal of mercy, but with justice accompanying it, right? So if you murder, there has to be a penalty for that. Number one, so that you can't murder again. Either we imprison you or we execute you. And number two, we have to show the world that we care about people having their lives taken by other people without justification, as in no self-defense or accident. What was the justification for this death? Someone just felt like killing this person. It's like, okay, well, we need to make sure justice is upheld. But the further harm has to be avoided. So you don't want to be a tyrant by just slaughtering someone who killed somebody because maybe an accident or maybe because of recklessness. But you also don't want that further harm, as in future murder or future death, to occur because you did not consider justice. So you make the wrongdoer pay, but you do it without malice. So the punishment fits the crime, but you show mild-mannered self-control as a Stoic. You uphold justice. The wrongdoer pays, but pays in a way that is congruent with the harm he committed. And clemency is showing that restraint and not letting yourself be carried away into tyranny and just saying, well, you know what? I'm going to be the opposite of mercy. I'm going to be a tyrant. And if, let's say Nero, somebody walks through my palace and, spills wine on my carpet, off with their head. Oh, somebody said something nasty about someone who's my friend, they go to prison. That's a tyrant, right? There's no clemency, there's no mercy, that's just tyranny. Clemency is saying, all right, who spilled, wine on whose carpet? Okay, you have to pay for the carpet. It was an accident, we get that, but you have to pay for the carpet. You don't have to go to jail, you're not going to get killed over it, but, have to make the person whose property you damaged whole. Okay, this is seen as the virtue of a king, as clemency. Nobody respects a king who is a tyrant, right? Because if he's a tyrant, how easy is that? Anybody who offends me, off with their head or they go to jail. And nobody respects a pushover king who just shows mercy. Oh, he spilled wine on my carpet? He's free to go. Oh, someone's invading my country? Well, maybe they didn't mean it. No one's going to respect that king either because he's the opposite of a tyrant. He's a pushover. He forgives everything and the tyrant forgives nothing. Clemency is finding that balance in between and showing forgiveness where you can draw the line in between a king and a tyrant. And that's what Seneca was hoping to do for Nero. Mercy is seen as the virtue of a god, right? And Seneca did not want to tell Nero that he should show mercy because even though the emperor and people thought of the emperor as somewhat divine, he did not want to further cloud Nero's judgment into making him think that, oh, you should show mercy because you're God. But if you don't want to, well, you're God, so no one's going to call you on it. He wanted to think of himself more as a king showing clemency than as a God showing mercy. Only God can give you mercy, right? You have nothing to trade when it comes to you and God. God gave you everything. He gave you your body. He gave you your mind. He gave you the world. So if you offend God, all you can ask for is mercy. You can't ask for clemency because what do you have to trade? What do you have that God could possibly use or that he would be willing to meet you in the middle on? So God gives you mercy. King gives you clemency. Okay, so we'll read a few excerpts from On Clemency, and there's one that's actually kind of long, but I will again put the read along so that you can follow. So we start with page 154, book 1, part 5, stanza 8. Okay, I hope I got that right. Okay. So we go. Just as lightning bolts endanger few but frighten all, so punishments meted out by the mighty spread terror more widely than harm. Not without reason. When a person is all-powerful, the concern is not how much he has done, but how much he might do. Okay, that goes to the difference between clemency and mercy, right? So God shows mercy because God is all-powerful. The king is all-powerful in his own domain, but if he gives himself over to dropping lightning bolts no matter where he goes, then people will start to see him as a wrathful God, as a tyrant. So the restraint in holding those lightning bolts back for when they are most needed is the true power of a king, because they keep people from assuming the lightning bolts will fall. They don't know if these lightning bolts will fall, but he has it within his power to bring them down. By showing restraint, he wins the favor of the people by showing clemency where it's due and showing punishment where it's owed. So that is something that I think Seneca was trying to convey to Nero in not being indiscriminate as far as it came to, dropping lightning bolts of pain. Okay, so we jump to one book. This is 170, page 170, book 1, part 5, stanza 26. Okay, and he wrote, true happiness lies in granting well-being to many, in summoning them back to life from death, and in earning a civic garland through clemency. No decoration is finer and more worthy of a prince's eminence than that garland, gained for saving the lives of fellow citizens. Not arms stripped from conquered enemies, not chariots stained with barbarians' blood, not spoils won in war. This is godlike power, to save people, whole flocks at a time, as your public service. Killing large numbers indiscriminately is the power of a conflagration or a collapsing building. Okay, so what he's saying that in that passage is to be a true king and show clemency, you must be godlike in your own way. Not a god, but godlike. To show people clemency and to save people, to spare them from certain doom, or to bring yourself honor with the granting of life versus the stripping of life. And that is, so to strip armies, bare, and to return with chariots stained with blood. This is the power of destruction. No one praises a building for collapsing on a family that's trapped inside. Just the same as he mentions the conflagration. No one praises the fire for having the power to rip through the city and destroy 2/3 of it. These are just forces of nature. And if you become that force of nature and destroy, you are no different than that collapsing building. You are no different than that conflagration if you have it within you to bring that amount of destruction. But to save the people, to rally those around you who look to you for leadership, and to save them from that fire, to save them from that collapse, that is godlike. That is renewing their faith by the saving of many lives. And that is clemency. Last one. We go to page 163. And this one's rather long, so you'll have to bear with me. This one is very good, but it takes a while to get through. So here we go. Quote, 163, Book 1, Part 19. No one will be able to imagine anything more becoming to a ruler than clemency, whatever sort of ruler he is, and on whatever terms he is put in charge of others. Surely we will admit that clemency is all the finer and more magnificent the grander the power in which it excels, a power that cannot rightly be harmful if it is ordered according to nature's law. For a king is a contrivance of nature, a point that can be appreciated from other animals, and especially from bees. Their king has the most spacious chamber, located in the hive's safest place, the center, and he is also free from labor himself while supervising others. Once the king has been lost, the whole community falls apart. They never put up with more than one ruler, but seek to find in battle the one who is superior. Furthermore, the king is conspicuous in his physical form, differing from the rest in size and splendor. Yet he is distinguished by this trait above all. Whereas bees are extremely irascible and, given their physical capacities, extremely pugnacious, leaving their stingers behind in their wound, the king has no stinger. For nature, not wanting him to be fierce and seek retribution that would come at a high cost, took his weapon away and left his anger unarmed. This is a tremendous lesson for great kings, for it's nature's way to keep pains in its tiny creations, and by working on the smallest scale, provide models for the magnificent. All right. Again, that was long, but it's very good. You'll have to forgive Seneca. Around 55 AD, they didn't quite figure out how the society of bees worked. The king he describes, of course, is the queen bee. We know she's a female, but his point is still relevant all the same. He says that the king is different from his worker bees, and you can tell. He doesn't have a stinger, right? The other bees sting. The other bees carry out pain and suffering on other animals. The king has the most spacious chamber, and he lives in the middle of the hive under their protection. When he's gone, the whole community collapses. The colony collapse of bees, and he is their superior. And if you watch the colony of bees, there's no doubt about that. So this is a tremendous lesson for kings in showing how nature wants them to act. As we said earlier in Stoicism, your behavior should be greater than your words, and you should act in accordance with nature. Your behavior should be in accord with nature. And he's using the lesson of the bees to demonstrate to Nero as an emperor, as the bee, the king bee, the queen bee. This is how nature presumes the king, the ruler, should act, and it has taken away its stinger. so too should a man in charge of a nation or an empire behave. He should regard himself as the center of his community and not look to inflict punishment and harm on those beneath him, because no one dare harms him, and nature has taken away his stinger and given him no reason and no ability to harm those in his colony or outside. All right, so that's on clemency. I won't do another part on clemency. It's a shorter book, but again, very, very worthwhile to read. We're going to go into the next Stoic Titan, and we'll do Epictetus Part 1, moving on from Seneca. So yeah, again, if you're liking what you're seeing on this channel, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and we will see you in the next one with Epictetus. Till then, take it easy. By the way, there's a lot going on in New York City. That's why I'm wearing a shirt today. So, a couple prayers for the good folks in New York and the NYPD who have come down with several infections. This is going to be a rough week, so hopefully they can find the spirit of Stoicism within them and, carry on and look for tomorrow to be a better day. Okay, again, thanks for coming by, and take it easy.